Hello. Generic robot narrator voice here again. Hope everyone out there is doing well, considering the current circumstances. Probably not. Here are 4 more allegedly true ghost stories from Bakersfield, California. Please make yourself comfortable and enjoy.
Late one rainy cold night, my mother, my sister and I were driving through the Grapevine North returning back to Bakersfield. Now it was around 1 a.m., and we stopped at a rest area. No one was there. No other cars, trucks, or people. We all got out of the car. In retrospect, we should have stayed together, but instead we each went different ways to the restrooms. It was pitch dark outside. The wind was freezing and the rain was pouring. Once we regrouped at the car, we all had an eerie story to tell. My sister told us of a handsome young man dressed in black that crossed her path. He smiled and seemed almost perfect to her. Mom said she also saw him. He smiled, tilted his head back, and opened his arms as if he knew her. I also saw him in a corner of the restroom that I entered. He beckoned to me as if he knew me. I found it rather off-putting, as he was a young man in the women's restroom. As we stayed in the locked car and talked, it was then we realized that we all saw him at the exact same time in 3 different places. He was very handsome, had long dark hair and deep piercing eyes. We then got the courage up to walk back and find him, but he had just vanished. He seemed to be a positive force, not really scary. However, I prefer not to visit desolate rest stops from now on. Submitted by Haley.
I used to live in the east side of Bakersfield on Isla Court. On a daily basis things would happen in that home. I think it picked up when an Ouija board was brought by my sister's friend. My mom's friend saw a monk walking in our living room, and disappeared right before her eyes. I would see red eyes every night looking at me through my window. My bed would shake to the point that I actually fell off of it. My feet would be pulled while I would try to sleep. Once I was in the kitchen getting a snack, and I heard this evil laugh right next to my ear. There was no one in there with me. I remember one night my brothers were in their room that had a back door leading into the backyard. All of a sudden, there was this huge bang. They opened the back door to see our tree in the yard with this mist all around it. It was violently shaking, as if something was trying to remove the whole tree from the ground. And there was this huge flap of wings, as if something was on the tree. Doors would open and close all night. Footsteps and noises were heard daily. Finally, when my family was able to save money to move, my brother decided to purchase the home from my parents. He didn't live more than a year there because his whole family was having lots of paranormal experiences. They were so afraid that they ended up selling the home. My family has had many experiences here in Bakersfield and in our prior home in Los Angeles. Experiences that you only see in movies. Submitted by Kathy.
During the early summer of 1985, I was sitting in the living room in the house on Minor Street, near Garces High School. I could not get around very well due to the cast on my right leg, but I did hobble well enough. Well, as I sat on the floor with my back propped against the couch watching the afternoon soap operas, I felt like someone was watching me. I looked around but did not see anything. A short time later again I had that eerie feeling of being watched, so this time I hobbled to my feet. As I turned towards the dining room I saw a little girl. She was about maybe 6 to 8 years old, dressed in what appeared to be one of those Easter dresses. It was pastel blue with the white ruffles around the bottom at about knee length. She wore those shiny black shoes with a strap and a buckle with knee-high socks. I was shocked to see this girl in the house as all doors had been closed and locked, and she was too small to have climbed in from upstairs. We stared at each other for a moment. Then I asked her, "Hey, how did you get in here?" She just stood there with her head down, but her eyes were looking at me. Then I asked her, Where are your parents? Are they outside somewhere? I looked around to see if I could see anyone snooping around the yard, front or back. As I turned back toward her, she ran through the dining room to the back sliding glass door. I thought she could not open it, it was locked, but she got through it. I started after her as best I could and was stopped at the sliding glass door. It was shut and locked. As I unlocked the door and slid it open, the girl quickly went down the porch stairs and ran to the right side of the house. There was no way out of the backyard from that side, and a 5-foot wall with rose bushes stood in her way. I thought I had her then, but when I reached the side of the house there was no little girl. I called to her for several minutes, and then checked the entire yard and the tree house, all while I was wearing a full leg cast. I could not find her. Nearly 10 years later, while sitting at a campfire enjoying the night with family, we started telling each other about spooky stuff. My mother-in-law said that she thought that the house on Minor Street was haunted. I asked her why she thought that. She did not want to say at first, but then she told this story of how she had seen a little girl standing outside the sliding glass door of the house. She said that she had gone outside to make her go away but could not find her. She said the one gate entry into the backyard was closed and locked. As my mother-in-law finished her story, I began asking about the girl. I told her about my encounter, and we both described her with wearing the same clothing. My mother-in-law had also seen the girl in the downstairs hallway near the back bedroom, but she just shrugged it off as being tired. It was soon after my sighting that the in-laws got divorced and left the house. Later, after the campfire stories, we heard a rumor of a family that had lived in that house, and that they had a little daughter who had passed away. The little girl's bedroom was at the end of the hall on the right side of the house. Submitted by No.
I lived off of Jenkins and Rosedale when I was younger. I loved to dig around, and whatnot. One day, I came across a decent amount of Native American arrowheads and various artifacts, mainly beads. I was young and thought nothing of it. I took the arrowheads and beads and put them on my dresser. Over time, different things began happening in and around my room. Drawers would be open, my door would open slightly and then close. I thought it was just the air conditioning coming on. Over time, I would wake up and see dark figures standing at the foot of my bed. I could only see a dark outline, but one was short and had long hair. The other was tall, and it nearly stood in my entire door frame, but it was headless. Again, it was just a dark outline, but it distinctly did not have a head. I remember thinking that the shorter one was my sister, and I would ask what she wanted. It would not respond, just stand there looking at me from the foot of my bed. The headless figure scared me, and I would hide under my covers, or yell for my parents. Then, during the summer, I remember my room becoming very cold. I got up and checked the air conditioning and it read 78 degrees. I went back to my room to see a figure over my dresser. The figure had long hair with a bow on its back and what looked like a satchel of some sort. I screamed. The figure turned around, and it had black hollow eyes. It terrified me. It had broad shoulders and wore clothes covering its lower half. It began to approach me when I heard my parents coming down the hall. When I turned back to the man, he had disappeared. The next day, I went back near the spot where I had found the arrowheads and beads and returned them to the ground. After doing so, I never had a problem. Submitted by Anthony.
Thank you for listening. If you have ghost stories that you'd be interested in me narrating in a future video, please email them to danthaplush@gmail.com. Thank you, and good night.